The screen flickered. In a dim, windowless room on the outskirts of Damascus, two figures sat like shadows against a bank of monitors. The image that filled their screens was grainy, jagged by heat shimmer and distance. A convoy of black SUVs snaking across a scrubbed ochre plain. Every pixel was the product of years, patient tracking, deep cover, hacked logs, and assets who had risked everything to whisper what they knew into an analyst's ear. "Movement on the Quds channel," one whispered in Hebrew. His partner leaned forward until he could see the headlights reflected on the desert. "It's him. The ghost is on the move," he said. That is where this story begins, with a moment small enough to fit in a single frame and large enough to set off a chain reaction across capitals, frontline militias, and secret rooms no one outside of them would ever enter. This is not fantasy. This is the declassified arc of an operation that pulled together decades of espionage and ended on a cold Iraqi runway in early January, with consequences that reverberated through the region. To many in the region, Qasem Soleimani was more than a general. He was the hand behind a web. By the time the name alone could tighten security protocols, Soleimani had become the architect of Iran's external military reach, a strategist who worked in shadows, sent proxies to fight, and built influence through militias and clandestine networks rather than speeches. He directed the Quds Force, the IRGC's external operations arm. He moved quietly and deliberately. Routes were changed at the last minute. Flights were irregular. Diplomatic cover was routine. He would arrive in a city, meet with field commanders, hand-deliver instructions, and leave before anyone outside his inner circle had time to fully understand what had shifted. Western intelligence often described his movements as erratic, hard to predict, and harder to pin down. Israeli intelligence, working differently, refused to treat chaos as randomness. They looked for pattern. They watched for the signature that accompanied the man, the meetings he attended, the equipment that moved after him, the sudden upticks in weapons shipments that followed his visits. They gave him a name, the Ghost. He thrived in invisibility. He was lethal precisely because he rarely made himself visible for long. Inside a classified operations room in Tel Aviv, the walls were a tangle of satellite prints, intercepted communications, and hours of human reporting. This was the Soleimani file. Every flight manifest, every encrypted chatter, and every face in a convoy catalogued and cross-checked. Analysts worked in silence. Senior officers paced. The project had become a living thing, an attempt to build a map, not just of roads and runways, but of a single man's mind. The network Israel developed over years had three pillars: human assets on the ground, signals and cyber infiltration, and overhead reconnaissance. Mossad's human sources, cultivated patiently inside militia networks, airports, and security services, sent back the small confirmations that turned signals into story. Israeli cyber teams probed and tapped communications. Satellites followed fleets of vehicles as they moved between Damascus, Baghdad, and points in between. In short, wherever he moved, a digital and human net tightened around him. There were false leads. Several times Mossad thought they had him, only to find decoys, convoys arranged to misdirect. His security measures were sophisticated. Mid-route formation changes, relays through intermediaries, and a habit of not using the same plane twice. Even the CIA found consistent, uninterrupted tracking difficult.
But time favored Mossad. They had patience, tradecraft, and a willingness to watch for patterns across years rather than hours. Then, in 2018, the picture shifted. A cyber breach of aviation logs, later reported in open media as part of investigative threads, gave partial flight manifests tied to senior Iranian officials. Cross-referencing those logs with on-the-ground sightings revealed recurrent flight corridors, Tehran to Damascus, Syria to Baghdad, a loop that too often preceded major operations. The net began to show the ghost's predictable arcs. Each piece of data was a brushstroke. Together, they painted his likely moves.
An operation of this kind required something Israel could not provide on its own: kinetic reach. Mossad could map and track. It could predict to a terrifying degree which vehicle would carry the man and when. But striking, in a highly volatile theater like Iraq, required assets with operational authority and the legal cover to act in a foreign state hosting U.S. forces. Coordination with the CIA and U.S. military planners is reported by multiple outlets to have been a practical necessity. The United States had the drones and the on-the-ground strike authority. Israeli intelligence had the predictive overlays, the pattern analysis, and the confirmation windows. The two wrapped their products together in a secure joint operations cell. Analysts from both countries reviewed feeds side by side. Mossad provided the high-confidence running picture that allowed American strike commanders to lock a target into a kinetic timeline with the narrowest practicable margin for error. By mid-December 2019, the intelligence picture coalesced. Intercepts and human reporting suggested a high-level meeting scheduled in Baghdad between Soleimani and Iraqi militia leaders, a meeting that could presage coordinated operations against U.S. and Israeli interests. The signals were urgent, the timing fluid, but for the first time in years, Mossad and its partners judged that they had more than a rumor. They had a converging chain of corroboration that made a strike feasible if the target confirmed in place. Inside a secure compound in northern Tel Aviv, the director convened a final briefing. Satellite imagery of Baghdad International Airport, arrival gates circled in red, hung on the wall. The briefing ran through contingencies. What if he changed cars, split the convoy, swung to a different gate? For each contingency, rehearsals and backups were planned. Capture was considered and rejected. The directorate feared a live operation would be impossible without provoking an uncontrollable escalation. The conclusion: if the people in the room ever had to act, the operation would be a lethal strike, surgical, deniable, and delivered at speed. The hours before a covert strike have the quality of compressed film, choices reduced to the tiniest of margins. On the night that mattered, Baghdad slept under a thin, hot sky. Convoys moved, engines whispering. A meeting was scheduled. Motorcades were loaded with bodyguards, VIPs, and whatever little token of ceremony a political visit required. From thousands of kilometers away, analysts watched as the convoy cleared the gates of Baghdad International Airport and rolled slowly into the city. Live satellite overlays, signal intercepts, and drone telemetry flowed to the Joint Operations Channel. In the skies over Iraq, MQ-9 Reaper drones, American assets, loitered at altitude, their sensors trained and their weapons available. The strike sequence, when it came, would be quick. At 1 a.m. local time on January 3, 2020, a pair of missiles hit the convoy. The explosions were swift and intense, a flash that erased the vehicles and the lives inside them. Reports later confirmed multiple dead, including Qasem Soleimani and Abu Mahdi al-Mohandes, a senior Iraqi militia leader allied to Iran's regional networks. The strike was carried out by the United States. The effect was immediate and global. The political fallout was faster than the shock. Tehran reacted with grief and fury. The death of Soleimani united factions that often squabbled and turned his killing into a rallying cry. Across the region, militias and state actors adjusted posture overnight. The U.S. closed embassies, allies and adversaries recalculated risk. Within 5 days, Iran launched a calibrated missile barrage, Operation Martyr Soleimani, targeting Iraqi bases hosting U.S. forces. notably Al-Assad Air Base in Anbar province and a base near Erbil. Iran later said this was a measured response designed to assert deterrence without touching off all-out war. U.S. officials characterized the attacks as significant, and later reports assessed that dozens of U.S. service members were medically treated for concussion and traumatic brain injuries in the aftermath. Alongside conventional strikes, a quieter digital front opened. Iranian cyber units and affiliated actors probed and in some cases disrupted infrastructure, while Iranian-aligned militias across the Levant and Iraq engaged in symbolic and targeted attacks. The assassination had not erased the networks Soleimani had built. In many ways, it accelerated adaptation. New commanders rose to fill his role. Coordination tightened across multiple theaters. The region's shadow war, assassination, sabotage, and cyber intrusion intensified. The political debate in capitals was acute. Washington's decision to authorize the strike was defended as removing a man who had orchestrated attacks on American interests. Critics warned about the long-term strategic consequences. In Tehran, policymakers argued whether to respond in kind or to calibrate for maximum political effect and minimum escalation. The result, at least in the early weeks, was a deliberate, loud message from Iran, missiles fired into Iraq, and a bitter condemnation of American and Israeli roles in the killing. Killing a single commander does not end a war. It reshapes incentives, redraws networks, and forces realignments that can last for years. For Mossad, the operation, if one accepts the reporting that Israeli intelligence helped provide the critical tracking that enabled the strike, was a tactical success in removing a figure seen as a direct threat to Israeli security. But the strategic ledger is complicated. Iran consolidated domestic support, regional militias found new leaders, and myriad proxy groups moved to signal their strength. The assassination also clarified one hard fact of modern covert warfare. Intelligence and kinetic power, when married, can achieve what neither could alone, and the consequences of such marriages are rarely contained. This is spycraft at its most consequential: patient surveillance, layered tradecraft, and the decision calculus of states about where to draw their lines in shadow. The story is also a reminder that actions taken in secrecy leave ripples that become political waves. They change public sentiment, they feed propaganda, and they force recalculation inside governments and among militias alike. If you've watched this far, leave a comment with where you're watching from. For a deeper dive, we've included declassified documents, maps, and reporting notes in the episode's companion materials so that you can see which parts of this story are confirmed in public sources and which remain the province of classified rooms. This is spycraft at its most consequential: patient surveillance, layered tradecraft, and the decision calculus of states about where to draw their lines in shadow. The story is also a reminder that actions taken in secrecy leave ripples that become political waves. They change public sentiment, they feed propaganda, and they force recalculation inside governments and among militias alike. This is Declassified Stories, where the unseen hands of history meet the light of public record.